The call reached him while the jungle was doing what it always did, breaking men down to what they really were. Sweat ran into eyes that no longer blinked. Boots sank into mud that punished hesitation. Around him, trainees moved through drills with the dull precision of exhaustion, bodies screaming while discipline kept them silent. He stood apart from them, arms folded, watching everything. When the vibration hit his pocket, he knew it wasn't routine. No one contacted him during live training unless something had already gone wrong. He stepped away from the clearing and answered. There was no greeting. "We found your brother." That was it. No explanation, no hesitation. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments where are you watching from. It helps more than you know. A video followed before he could respond. The screen showed a man kneeling in wet soil, hands bound behind his back. His shirt was torn, his face swollen, blood drying along his jaw. Even like that, there was a familiar defiance in the way he held himself. The trainer recognized him immediately, not because of his face, because of his posture. The cartel emblem filled the frame next. Painted wood. A machete laid carefully in front of the camera, positioned like a signature. The trainer ended the video before it finished. He stood still for several seconds, phone hanging loose in his hand, listening to the jungle breathe. Behind him, the trainees had gone quiet. They didn't need instructions to know something had changed. The brother had gone south months earlier. Logistics work. Consulting for companies that needed routes assessed and problems solved quietly. He wasn't military, but he knew how to survive around violent men. He had trusted the wrong ones. The trainer turned back toward the clearing. "Training stops," he said. His voice carried without effort. "Pack everything." No one asked why. They never did. By nightfall, he was airborne under a name that wasn't his, moving toward a country most people only heard about when things fell apart. He didn't drink. He didn't sleep. He replayed details with clinical precision. The cartel wanted fear to travel. They wanted the image shared, whispered, remembered. They hadn't expected who would receive it. For years, the trainer had operated in a space governments acknowledged without admitting. He didn't command units. He built them. Men came to him already hardened and left precise, disciplined, capable of operating where oversight vanished. Cartels knew his reputation without knowing his face. By the time he landed, he already knew which group was responsible. The terrain in the video narrowed it down. The watermark sealed it. This wasn't a major syndicate. It was a regional power trying to expand. That made them reckless. He met his contact in a market that smelled of diesel and rotting fruit. The man confirmed everything without being asked. River routes, villages controlled through intimidation, a base deep in the jungle where outsiders rarely returned from. "This place believes it's invisible," the contact said. The trainer nodded. "That's why it will fail." He returned to the compound before dawn. The trainees were awake, gear laid out, movements economical. They watched him carefully. They had seen anger before. What they saw now was something colder. He gathered them in the clearing. "My brother was murdered," he said. "Deliberately." No reaction. "Good. I'm not asking for volunteers," he continued. "I'm selecting." He walked the line slowly, stopping only in front of men who didn't look away. Men who understood that training wasn't always preparation. Sometimes it became something else. When he finished, fewer than half remained. "Gear up," he said. "Light. Quiet." One trainee hesitated. "Sir, deployment?" The trainer met his eyes. "Class is moving outdoors." By the time the sun climbed through the canopy, they were gone. The cartel believed the jungle belonged to them. They had just turned it into his classroom. And lessons taught in places like this never stayed contained. They spread. They moved before sunrise, splitting into pairs as they entered terrain the cartel believed no one could challenge. The trainer led from the center, not the front. He watched how the men adapted once the jungle stopped being theoretical. Foot placement changed. Breathing slowed. Weapons became secondary to awareness. This was where reputations were either earned or exposed. No one failed. By the second day, they reached the outer villages. There were no checkpoints, no barricades. Control here wasn't enforced with walls, but with memory. Children stopped playing when unfamiliar silhouettes passed. Dogs went silent. Men leaned in doorways, pretending not to watch. Fear had been made ordinary. The trainer observed without interfering. These places survived by reading power correctly. He wanted to see who still understood how to do that. 2 trainees were sent ahead unarmed. Dirt smeared across their clothes, shoulders slumped, posture adjusted to appear defeated. They spoke softly, asked nothing, paid for food they didn't eat. Within an hour, the pattern was clear. The village wasn't operational. It was a buffer. Informants, runners, no weapons stored, no leadership present. Everything important was deeper near the river bends where sound died quickly. This was where the brother had been taken. The thought didn't slow the trainer. It sharpened him. They moved after dark. He taught them to take space without announcing it. Patrols were bypassed without contact. Trails were crossed once and never reused. Markers were left in places only trained eyes would recognize. This wasn't revenge yet. It was groundwork. On the 4th night, they reached the river hub. Boats were tied carelessly, fuel drums half buried, radios left unattended because no one believed enemies could reach this far quietly. The cartel had grown comfortable behind isolation. The trainer watched for a long time before giving any order. "Notice how they stand," he whispered. "Relaxed. That's habit, not confidence." The trainees nodded. They took the radios first, then the fuel, then the boats. No shots, no shouting. By dawn, the river was useless. The cartel noticed faster than expected. A scouting element pushed into the jungle before noon, moving loud, overconfident, assuming resistance would announce itself. The trainer allowed them to come close enough to feel safe. Then he stepped out alone. The scouts froze, confusion spreading as quickly as fear. One raised his rifle. The trainer crossed, the distance before the thought finished forming. Hand to hand was quieter. When it was over, the bodies were dragged just far enough off the trail to be found. They weren't hidden. They weren't mutilated. They were arranged deliberately. A message without word. By nightfall, the cartel leadership knew something had entered their territory that didn't fear them. They sent a messenger at dawn, a boy, barely old enough to shave. He found the camp because the trainer allowed it. His hands shook as he delivered the message. "They want to talk," the boy said. The trainer nodded. "Tell them I already am." That night, a supply convoy vanished without a trace. Drivers fled into the jungle. Cargo never arrived. Weapons disappeared into places no map marked. The cartel began to turn inward. That was the fracture. The trainer gathered the trainees around a low fire, careful to keep the flames small. "They'll offer money first," he said. "Then threats. Then deals." No one spoke. "They killed my brother to send a message," he continued. "Now they'll beg to erase it." He stood. "This isn't negotiation." Above them, the jungle hummed, indifferent and alive. Somewhere deeper within it, men were realizing that power depended on silence, and silence had been taken from them. The cartel tried diplomacy at dusk, when the jungle softened and shadows stretched long enough to hide intentions. 3 men approached the clearing with hands raised, weapons left behind where they could be seen. Clean clothes, careful posture, the kind of restraint that came from fear, not respect. The trainer let them walk all the way into view. "Stop," he said. They did. The one in the center spoke first, voice measured, eyes never settling. "There has been a misunderstanding." The trainer stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "A misunderstanding is a wrong address," he replied. "What you did was intentional." The man swallowed. "The people responsible acted without approval. Compensation can be arranged. Money was always the first offer." The trainer leaned in just enough to be felt. "You don't understand why you're losing." He turned away before they could respond. The trainees didn't move. They didn't need to. The meeting was over before it had begun. The next days were systematic. They didn't attack the cartel's center. They dismantled its edges. Communication nodes failed. Runners vanished. Safe houses emptied overnight after rumors spread that the jungle itself was watching. The trainer taught his men how to be visible without being caught. A footprint where none should be. A fire pit still warm but abandoned. A supply crate opened and neatly repacked with something missing. Fear grew without explanation. On the 7th day, the cartel made its worst mistake. They hunted. A full unit entered the jungle just after sunrise, armed heavily and moving fast, convinced that aggression would flush their enemy into the open. The trainer watched from elevation as the unit passed beneath him, Boots snapping branches, radios barking commands. He let them go deep. Then he closed the jungle behind them. The trainees moved as instructed, never in groups, never from the same direction twice. Sound lost meaning once panic took hold. Orders dissolved, ranks collapsed. The trainer corrected mistakes quietly in motion, reminding them that emotion wasted time. By nightfall, the unit was gone. No survivors, no clustered bodies, just absence. Absence traveled faster than bullets. Villages began to whisper. The cartel's name was no longer spoken with pride, but with caution. Men avoided eye contact. Routes changed without explanation. That was when the boss reached out, not directly. Through intermediaries, through promises layered in desperation, he wanted a meeting. Neutral ground, daylight, riverbank. The trainer agreed. They met at noon. The sun burned overhead, stripping shadows away. The boss arrived with guards who looked capable but exhausted, eyes hollow from nights without sleep. He was smaller than expected. "My men acted beyond their authority," the boss said. "This can be resolved." The trainer studied him without expression. "You approved it." The boss laughed nervously. "You think you can kill everyone? I don't need to," the trainer replied. Behind the boss, one guard shifted, distracted by a sound that hadn't existed a moment earlier. That was enough. The boss ran. He didn't make it far. The trainer didn't kill him. Not yet. Fear needed time to work its way through a system. They vanished back into the jungle, leaving the boss alive, shaken and aware that his control was an illusion. That night, rain hammered the canopy, washing away tracks and certainty. The trainer sat alone and allowed himself a single thought of his brother. This wasn't finished. Not even close. The cartel did what organizations always did when fear replaced certainty. They fractured. Orders contradicted each other. Guards were reassigned too often. Night watches doubled, then tripled, until exhaustion hollowed men out from the inside. Paranoia crept into every decision. No one trusted routes that had been safe for years. No one slept long enough to dream. The trainer let it happen. For 3 days they did nothing. No movement. No raids. No signs left behind. Silence became the pressure. On the 4th night, he sent one trainee alone into a village the cartel had abandoned earlier. The man carried no weapon. He bought food, paid more than necessary, spoke little, asked nothing. By morning, the trainer knew which routes the cartel still believed were secure. They moved before dawn, splitting into 2 elements and approaching a hillside compound the cartel had fortified months earlier. Concrete walls, corrugated roofs. A place meant to intimidate villagers, not defend against men who understood structure. The trainer gathered the team in a shallow ravine. "This isn't about speed," he said quietly. "It's about control." They nodded. The men were learning when restraint mattered more than force. They took the perimeter first. Not all of it. Just enough that the gaps were noticed. Radios crackled with confusion. Orders overlapped. The compound began locking itself down from the inside. That was when the trainer went in. Not through the gate. Through a maintenance tunnel the cartel had forgotten existed. Inside, the air smelled of oil, mildew, and fear. 2 guards rounded a corner. One was disarmed and used to silence the other before either could react. No alarms. No shots. They reached the central room where maps were pinned to walls and money sat stacked like it could buy loyalty. The boss wasn't there. The phone on the table rang. The trainer let it ring twice before answering. "You're thorough," a voice said. Calm, educated, not local. "I am," the trainer replied. "You've disrupted something larger than personal loss." The trainer closed his eyes briefly. "You think this started with him?" A pause followed. Then colder. "You won't leave this jungle." The call ended. The trainer didn't need more information. That voice told him the problem extended beyond the cartel. Someone else had been leaning on them. Someone who preferred distance and layers. Fine. They exfiltrated before sunrise, leaving the compound intact but emptied of everything useful. Weapons gone. Cash gone. Records vanished. The cartel woke up weaker without understanding why. That afternoon the jungle brought him proof. A runner arrived breathless, eyes wide, offering information in exchange for safety. He led the trainer to a smaller camp tucked away from main routes, where the brother had been held. The trainer went alone, Inside the structure, bloodstains remained where no one had bothered to clean properly. Rope fibers clung to a broken chair. The air was stale, heavy with old fear. He stood there longer than necessary. This was where the decision had been made. He took a knife from the table. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. When he returned, his expression told the trainees not to ask questions. That night, the boss called again. This time he begged. Names were offered, routes, deals, promises of disappearance. The trainer listened without interrupting. When the boss finished, the trainer spoke once. "You still don't understand the lesson." "What lesson?" the boss whispered. "That power only exists while people believe in it." By morning, word spread that the boss had vanished. No announcement, no body, just absence. Men scattered, routes went cold. Territory emptied itself. That should have been the end, but power never vanished quietly. Something else was already moving, and when it surfaced, it would learn why the trainer's reputation had never been built on mercy. Power rushed to fill the space the cartel left behind. It always did. Within 2 days of the boss's disappearance, new figures emerged. Younger, louder, desperate to be seen. They wore confidence like armor, mistaking aggression for authority. They argued openly, issued contradictory orders, tried to enforce loyalty through volume. The trainer watched from elevation, unmoving as their mistakes stacked on top of one another. This phase required patience. He didn't strike the new leaders directly. Instead, he dismantled the idea that following them was profitable. Money moved through predictable veins. Couriers believed familiarity equaled safety. Boats traveled the same bends they always had. The trainer let those habits betray them. Shipments vanished without confrontation. Cash arrived short. Weapons showed up late or not at all. Accusations spread faster than truth ever could. Men started disappearing for the wrong reasons. The jungle finished the rest. One night, a trainee approached him quietly, eyes scanning the darkness. "They're turning on each other," he said. "Some want to surrender, others want to escalate." The trainer nodded once. "Then it's ending." "What about the ones above them?" the trainee asked. That was the unanswered question. The voice from the phone call hadn't returned, but the trainer knew better than to trust silence. Men who operated through layers never revealed themselves unless forced. So he forced them. For the first time, he allowed himself to be noticed. Not recklessly, just enough. A patrol was spotted where none should have been. A signal fire burned briefly before being smothered. Signs appeared that suggested coordination beyond the cartel's understanding. The response came faster than expected. The phone rang that night. Same voice, same calm. "You've made your point," the voice said. "The organization is collapsing. Walk away." The trainer didn't answer immediately. He listened to the jungle breathe. "You're confusing containment with closure," he said. A pause. "What do you want?" The trainer's voice didn't change. "I want your protection removed everywhere." "That isn't possible." "It is," the trainer replied. "You just don't like the cost." He gave the voice a single name, not his own, one of theirs. The line went dead. By morning, pressure surfaced in places the cartel didn't understand. Accounts froze, travel stalled, advisories circulated quietly. Men who believed distance kept them safe found doors closing. Without explanation, the jungle didn't know why aircraft passed overhead that day. The trainer did. The remaining cartel fragments broke apart completely. Some fled north, some surrendered, some vanished into places where survival replaced ambition. The trainer allowed it. Revenge didn't require annihilation. It required correction. He returned alone to the riverbank at dusk. The water moved the same way it always had, indifferent to power and blood. He knelt and let the current wash the knife clean. He left it there. When he regrouped with the trainees, they waited for orders. "Training resumes tomorrow," he said. One of them frowned slightly. "That's it?" "That's enough," the trainer replied. They understood. As they broke camp and moved back toward the compound, something settled. Not relief, not satisfaction. Resolution. His brother was gone. That truth didn't bend, but the men who had decided his life was expendable no longer believed the jungle belonged to them. That mattered. As the compound lights came into view days later, the trainer's phone vibrated once. No threat, no voice, just a single word. Understood. He deleted it without hesitation. Some lessons didn't need repetition, and some reputations existed so others never had to learn the hard way. The trainer returned to the compound the same way he always did, before dawn, without ceremony. The jungle behind him was already reclaiming the paths they had cut through it. Leaves folded back into place, mud smoothed over footprints. Within days it would be as if nothing had happened. That was how it was supposed to be. The trainees were awake, gear arranged neatly, bodies moving through warm-up drills with the same discipline they'd shown before everything changed. No one celebrated. No one asked questions. They watched him instead, waiting to see if he was the same man who had led them out. He was. He gathered them in the clearing where the training cycle had first been interrupted. "What happened beyond this perimeter doesn't belong to stories," he said. "It belongs to outcomes." They listened. "You were selected because you could operate without needing applause. That hasn't changed." No speeches followed. No explanations. Training resumed exactly where it had paused, as if the jungle operation had been another exercise, because in truth that was how he had treated it. Precision, discipline, finality. Confirmation arrived in pieces over the next few weeks through channels that never appeared on official records. The cartel's territory fractured completely. Rival groups approached it cautiously, then backed away. Routes stayed unused. Villages were left untouched. The region became inconvenient, unprofitable, dangerous. No single organization replaced what had been dismantled. The absence itself became the warning. The men above, the ones who had leaned on intermediaries and believed distance insulated them, adjusted quietly. Funding shifted elsewhere. Names vanished from boards and advisory roles. Influence retreated without apology. The system corrected itself. That was enough. Weeks later, the trainer stood alone at his brother's grave, far from the jungle, far from any place where power was measured in fear. The marker was simple. No rank, no explanation, just a name and dates that ended too early. He didn't kneel. He didn't ask forgiveness. His brother had understood the risks of the world they lived in. He had also understood something else, that some lines once crossed could not be uncrossed. The trainer spoke quietly just once. He said what had been done, not in detail, not in justification, simply as fact. Then he left. Life didn't change in the way people imagined after things like this. There were no quiet sunsets that suddenly felt earned, no sense of balance restored to the world. There was only continuity. He continued training men who came to him because they knew reputation mattered more than credentials. He continued correcting mistakes the same way he always had, directly, without cruelty, without indulgence. He continued waking before sunrise and listening to the jungle remind him that control was always temporary. But something inside him had settled, not peace, closure. The brother was gone. Nothing could alter that. What had changed was the future. The certainty that no one involved would ever believe brutality was consequence-free again. The knowledge that some messages once answered properly never needed to be repeated. The jungle had returned to being just a jungle. The compound returned to being just a place where men learned what they were capable of enduring. And the trainer returned to being exactly what he had always been, someone whose presence alone was often enough to prevent mistakes before they were made. That was the real lesson. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.